Thanks, Rob. Ooh, that's loud. Okay. All right, so let's get started with a prayer, and welcome to this happy Sabbath. Thank you, Lord, for this day you've given us. Thank you for the blessings of rain and sunshine and all the things we've been through this week. Lord, it's all for your glory and for the glory of this world that you've given us. Lord, be with us as we study and we think about the times to come, where we fit into the plan. Be with us as we study and learn, and then go on the week beyond. We ask in your name. Amen. Well, first of all, I want to say a big thank you to Tom and his crew. It goes up, it comes down. It goes up, it comes down. How happy is that, huh? So, Dean, you weren't here when the screen fell down. I didn't do any PowerPoints because I wasn't sure we'd have a screen. So, we just got to listen today. So. Get ready. I picked this topic this week. Actually, I'm not sure it was me that picked it. I woke up at 1:30 in the morning. And I was thinking about the things that Teresa preached on last week. And the thoughts came from there. As I thought about what Teresa talked about, it just kept coming. And while I was thinking these things through, and it was just getting outlined for me, the song, Fill My Cup, Lord, was going through my mind over and over and over. So as I talk about these things that we may be lacking, remember, fill my cup, Lord. It's there. So let's just jump in. Okay, the memory verse for today is, but of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as in the days of Noah were, so will the coming of the Son of Man be. That's Matthew 24, 36 to 37. Who thinks we're not in those times? I think we're solidly in those times. Teresa talked about it last week. You know, it is coming soon. So I'm going to use a little example that I like. Who likes the rodeo? Rodeo fans? I'm a rodeo fan. My favorite event is the, and I think we may have wound up with a horse that came from there, it seems like, is bronc riding. Bronc riding. So what's the goal of the bronc rider? He's to hang on, right. And how long does he hang on? Till he gets to the buzzer. Okay? Because when he's on that horse, he's not looking at his watch. He's waiting for the buzzer. And when the buzzer goes, then he can get scored for the ride. And the other cool thing that happens is a couple of pickup riders come out and rescue him and get him off that horse. Well, a bronc rider goes through a process, and he gets ready for the ride. And he's on that horse, and he's in the chute, and he's waiting, and he's mentally prepared. He's preparing himself. He's probably researched the horse to know how the horse does it jump up and sunfish, like that, comes down. What does that horse do? He's gotten mentally prepared. He's physically prepared. He's pretty strong. You got to be pretty strong to buck out a horse. He's a little busted up a time or two. He learned some things. Mentally prepared, physically prepared. But you know what? That horse is prepared too. That horse has a goal. What's the horse's goal? To get rid of him, right? The horse is going to chuck that guy off if he can. So the gate opens. Boom, gate opens. Horse leaves the chute. Let the bucking commence. That horse is going to persecute that guy. See how I worked that in there? Persecution. Persecute that guy until the buzzer goes. And he gets pulled off by the pickup riders. It's kind of like what we're going through right now, folks. No one knows when the Lord is coming again. We don't know when the buzzer is going to go off. But guess what? We got a ride coming. So I think the chute, the gate's open. I think the gate's open, and let the bucking commence. It's happening now. Teresa talked last week about how we should be joyful in persecution, which is hard, and she covered that. She did a good job. And we talked about last week some of the big persecution things, the executions and that kind of stuff. It doesn't start that way. The chute just came open. The gate just came open. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians 2, 11 and 12. This ties into the first verse we read, and it says, New King James Version, "And for this reason God will give them a strong delusion that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned who did not believe the truth but had the pleasure in unrighteousness." I can tell you from what we've seen lately, especially the last couple of weeks, you turn on the TV or on the internet, you cannot believe what you see, you cannot believe what you hear. If you don't have a book that you can turn to, especially if this book is so deceptive out there. With the addition of, or the creation or the becoming of AI, they can take your likeness and place it on something else and create a whole new narrative to include your voice. There was a TikToker this week who was horrified to find out that someone had taken her face and put it on porn videos and put it out across the internet. And it was believable. It looked like the real thing. Politicians are finding this out. It's not safe out there. What's safe is what we find in here. We talked this morning in Sabbath school about, where do you put that? Thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee. That's where it's got to go. We had a great Sabbath school lesson this morning. Just an excellent lesson. There are those who think we're not being persecuted right now, and I would say they're wrong. You don't have to look that far. People are being persecuted for their religion. This week there was I watched an interview with a couple they're Catholic, and they're devout Catholic. They want to raise their family in the Catholic Church, and the state was called. This was in Illinois. The state was called about child abuse, about child neglect. State investigated, and here's what they found. This is from the news article. Notably, upon completing the investigation, the state determined that the allegations of abuse against Mary and Jeremy were unsubstantiated, but still argued that the disagreement over gender identity was distressing their child, and they removed the child from the home. And the father was talking about, I just want to raise my child in my religious beliefs. And the case is going to the Supreme Court. And it's going to be probably one of the first ones of a series, I think, that we'll see at the Supreme Court. And I'm hoping the Supreme Court takes it, because they don't have to. But I hope that they take this unjust thing and correct it. Because we're guaranteed religious liberty, but that's not what's happening, folks. It's not what's happening. The world is changing. So how does there's is more than what I'm going to talk about next. I'm going to talk about canceling. So you've heard of canceling, I'm sure. You know, if you're unpopular, you get canceled. You say something on YouTube or Facebook or someplace, you get canceled, you get removed. This is not a new thing, really. But it's getting organized. Watch my time. Watch my time for Albert. So, you knew I was going to do that. So, there's a group out there, and it's called the Center for Countering Digital Hate. It's a British nonprofit organization with offices in London and Washington, D.C. that, quote, works to stop the spread of online hate speech and disinformation, unquote. It campaigns to deplatform people that it believes promote hate or disinformation or misinformation, and campaigns to restrict media organizations such as the Daily Wire, Breitbart News, CNS News, Hot Air, Newsbusters, Newsmax, MRC TV, Red State, Twitchy, Daily Wire, Zero Hedge, the list goes on. If they do not agree with you, they are going to the legislature, the federal government, to convince them to deplatform groups based on hate, disinformation, misinformation. Basically, anything they don't agree with or doesn't support their agenda, they're trying to deplatform. Think about this, folks. Where have we heard this before? We'll come to it. Think about it. We've heard this before. This is not new. Oh, yeah, I heard it. Debanking. I mentioned this a while back, and somebody said, what is debanking? So here's the definition. I took this from Wikipedia last night. Debanking, and I talked about this, I think, a little bit last time. It's known within the banking industry as de-risking. It's the closure of people's or banks, or closure of people's or organizations' bank accounts by banks who perceive the account holders to pose a financial, legal, or reputational risk to the bank. Examples of this include enforcement of anti-corruption and anti-money laundering. We would probably agree with those things. The closing of accounts on the internet, let's say that have on the dark web access, you can go on the internet and buy drugs. You can buy anything you want on the internet, on the dark web. And people, this is the important one here, folks. People considered to be politically exposed persons. Politically exposed persons. People they don't agree with. People that they want to neutralize. Remove their resources. Take away their ability to say anything in public. Take away their livelihoods. And we've seen this before. We saw it during COVID when the Canadian truck drivers at the border, they had their protest, and the Canadian government canceled their bank accounts. If you donated to their cause, they canceled your bank account. If you took them fuel so they could continue keep their trucks running and stay warm, they canceled your bank accounts. So the mechanism that we hear about in Revelation that says, you will not be able to buy or sell, it's in place. We don't have to wait for it to be invented. It's there. And these are just the test runs of this. This is small stuff. It's coming, though. And the closure of these accounts is generally performed without giving a reason and without the prospect of appeal. Because it's not the government closing their account, it's the bank closing their account. Now, may they have been influenced by the government or influenced by this other group? Probably did. And debanking, it says, and this is in the definition, can have severe consequences for individuals as it cuts them off from many activities in society.
Are they stealing your money then?
So they're just, basically they're cutting out. You have no access to the money. No access. I'm not sure what happens to the money, but you don't have access to it. Yeah, so let's keep our eyes open. Again, get ready. We don't know how long it's going to take for Jesus to get here. We know that the chute is open, the horse is bucking. We're starting to see the first few little hops. A lot of times you'll see a horse come out of the gate, and they take a few steps, and they tuck down, and then watch it go. That spring comes unwound, and that's when the real action starts. I think we're in those first few steps. The spring is being wound. Behold, I send you out as sheep. This is I didn't write it down. Good job, Dave. Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. And this is Jesus talking to his disciples. But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to councils and scourge you in the synagogues. You'll be brought before governors and kings for my sake as testimony to them and to the Gentiles. But when they deliver you up, do not worry about how or what you should speak, for it will be given to you in that hour what you should speak. For it's not you who speaks, but the Father of the Spirit who speaks in you. It's a warning and a promise, all wrapped together. I've heard some pastors say, and I kind of agree with it in some ways, if we're not being persecuted, we're not standing up high enough. If we're not being persecuted, we aren't standing up for the people who need us to stand up for them. It's not about ourselves all the time. There are people who need our support, who, when they're being persecuted, need us to stand with them, to lend them a shoulder, lend them physical support, and more. I just heard on the news, and this flashed me right back to the 1930s. This last couple of weeks, I've been listening to people talk about how'd they put it? The Christian nationalists. Christian nationalists. And I listened to an interview yesterday. I was in the parking lot of the YMCA. It just came out from doing some things. Some really good stuff with the Y. And I was listening to this woman being interviewed, and I'll give her, she was honest. She said what she thought. Good for her. She said, Christian nationalists, they asked her, what is that? Explain that exactly. She says, those people are Christians, not regular Christians, but Christians who believe in the Constitution and that their rights come from God and not the government. She couldn't have been more clear. And then she went on how she wants to cancel those voices. If you're a Christian and you believe your rights come from God, you believe in the Constitution, that is unacceptable. Her plan is to segregate, to mock, to blame, and use Christians, especially this one little bit of Christians, and I don't think it's little, but to mock and blame and segregate Christians. What does that sound like? Germany, 1933. Mocking people, making them feel less than human, segregating them, canceling them, blaming them for what's wrong with society. Listen to the radio. You'll hear Christians being blamed for the things that the other side is doing. Well, if we just capitulate more, if we just appease more, then we wouldn't be blamed for things. There's a great quote by Winston Churchill. He says, the appeaser is the one who feeds the crocodile hoping it eats him last. It kind of encapsulates the dangers of appeasement. These people aren't interested in being appeased. You can try all you want. It's not going to work. These are the end times. That horse is bucking. And if it gets a chance, it's going to throw you off. Throw us off. Throw me off. It's going to deceive us with AI. It's going to blame us for the problems of society, which if people followed this book, you would not have those problems in society. I was asked yesterday, why do people use fentanyl in that hour-long interview? And it kind of stopped me because I wasn't expecting that particular question. And I think about it. But people who feel helpless and hopeless throughout history have tried to numb that. They've numbed it with alcohol. They've numbed it with any number of things. Any addiction you can think of is a way to try to get out of the pain of being helpless and hopeless. But this is our help and our hope. We know how it ends. That horse is going to buck, but we know how it ends. We know who the pickup rider is that's coming in to rescue us. Let's go through some things pretty quick here. So getting ready. Get ready, folks. And I don't think we're ready. I'm going to be real honest. I don't think we're ready. So let's look at like 5 pieces here. And this is when that song was really playing in my head. Fill my cup, Lord. Physical. So 1 Corinthians 6:19 says, do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God and not your own? My temple is too big right now. These are not well-developed stomach muscles. This is too many trips to the dessert line at potluck. But you have to take care of your bodies. Your bodies, well-tuned, well-oiled machines will take care of, if you see that whole list of stuff he talked about a little bit ago, anxiety, depression, all the things that does to your body. If your body is in shape, you can withstand those things. If you take care of your body and you have nutrition and you have the right things going on, you can withstand what's going to come. And if you can withstand it, you can help other people. Mental, like my cowboy example, he is thinking hard on how he's going to beat that horse. And the horse is underneath him thinking how he's going to beat that cowboy. Well, Satan is that horse. He's thinking. 2 Timothy 1, verses 7 says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. A sound mind. Stick with this. Avoid those things we were talking about earlier. And a sound mind comes from being soundly grounded in this. We talked about Joseph earlier in Sabbath school, about how he was given a test that took years. From the time he was a snotty, rambunctious, rebellious little brother till the time he became in charge of Egypt was a long test. He figured it out. He put his whole trust in the Lord. He didn't leave with a Torah in his pocket. He didn't get a chance to pack a bag. He had the Word in his heart and in his mind. It's in his mind. Gary, bless you. You know more verses than anybody I have ever met. I am just amazed every time I talk to you. It's just amazing. Gary is amazing. I've never seen anybody like you. Emotional. And that's what that... It's really interesting that we had this thing from this psychiatrist that really fits into what I'm talking about this morning. Emotional. Proverbs 16:32. Whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty. And he who rules his spirit is better than he who takes a city. That's a self-governance. Minding your own emotions. How many, and I talk with people all the time who make their decisions based on their emotions. And I had one of my employees come into my office and we were talking about this. Well, that doesn't feel right. I said, okay, I don't care about your feelings. Just to be really frank. This office is not based around feelings. We don't make decisions based on feelings. We use reason and logic, and we temper it with compassion. You can't leave out compassion. It has to be all three of those things. It keeps you on an emotionally level playing field. It allows you to make the right decisions at the right times for the right reasons. Emotions change. If you base your decisions on emotions, that can change from one day to the next. It can change from the morning to the afternoon when you let your life be ruled by emotions. I've had people come to me and say, oh, I have had such a horrible day. It's horrible. The whole day, horrible. And I'll say, was it a horrible day or was it a horrible 5 minutes that you just drug out all day? You let your emotion of that time, that little period of time, run away with you and spoil your whole day. It was not that your whole day was spoiled. They didn't have control of their emotions. The Bible talks a lot about money, finances, what wise people do, what foolish people do. Guarding your finances, how to use your finances, what goes to God, what goes to the state, the Bible talks about it a lot because people get wrapped up around money. It's important. Proverbs 11, verses 24 to 25 says, One person gives freely, yet gains more. And another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. A generous person will prosper, and whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. In the end times, if we are financially sound going in, we have the ability to help others. We can be that person who refreshes others, takes care of others. And guess what? You get it back. It may not be in the form of money, but the rewards come. God takes care of people who take care of people. It's interesting that in the class this morning, God knows, he says, he remembers we are made of dust. He takes that into account. We serve an amazing God. Last thing I want to talk about is spiritual. You need to be spiritually prepared. Get ready for the battle of the Spirit. I think about a couple that came into our front office, and I got called up front to come talk to them. And this little couple, they were talking, it was about a building permit. And they dug in their heels, and they would not be moved. They would not budge. They knew they were in the right. By golly, they were not going to be moved. They wouldn't budge. And it just tickled me. Now, we got them around and reasoned and came to a good conclusion, but they impressed me with their strength. And I've seen that strength in Christians in all churches. I've seen them in our church. So Ephesians 6, verses 10 to 18. Number of verses here. So, finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so you can stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers and against authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Certainly sounds like the end times. It wasn't their time as well. You know, they had the same issues with Satan. I'll give Satan this: he's consistent, he's sneaky, and he's got it in for us. But we have the ability to fight back. We've got all the tools we need right here. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so when that day of evil comes, and I think it's coming, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything, to stand. And stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. You know, when I was overseas, I had my kit. And my kit had, start from the ground, I had good boots. You know, and then coming up, I had my uniform with 1,000,000 pockets. It was great. Trying to find something that was interesting, like you do the Macarenas, trying to find where you put the thing, because I had so many pockets. Then I had my body armor with plates in the front and the plates in the back, ceramic plates, and I had a groin protector, and I had things on my elbows, things on my knees to protect my knees. I had a helmet, a really good Kevlar helmet. I had my rifle, I had my pistol, I had all that other stuff, all my weapons. I had water, I had all the things I needed to do to fight. As a single person, I had everything I needed to do to fight, to defend myself. But it can go farther than that. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, and pray in spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. I like that, with all kinds of prayers and requests. He's not saying, pray the Lord's Prayer. Pray these specific prayers. Use a little prayer book. And can use, turn to page 119 and read those prayers today. No, he says, all kinds of prayers and requests. And we've heard pray without ceasing. Don't stop. Stay in that mental attitude, that emotional attitude of prayer, and take everything in. The verse goes on and says, with this in mind, be alert. And always keep praying for all the Lord's people. Always for everybody. Not yourself. And as the group is blessed, you're blessed. I think of the Shield. And Brenda and I watch, one of my favorite shows is Time Team. Anybody watch Time Team? Okay. It's some British archaeologists, and they go to a site. They have 3 days to dig up all they can find and prove their theories, and many times their theories are wrong, and they have to change. They're a delight to watch. And this is in England, and they dig up stuff from the Romans. They dig up stuff from the medieval times and before that. But the Roman stuff is really cool. They dig up so much stuff on that time period from Rome, from like 50 AD to 500. What the Romans did, the Roman soldiers, probably one of the best armies that ever existed was the Roman army. And they supported each other. Each soldier had his kit. He had his shield. He had his sword. He had 2 pike. It's like a spear, only theirs was a little different. Probably one of the best sets of things to defeat shields. He had a big heavy head, and a very thin shaft behind it, so it could go through the shield, and then there was no friction to keep it from going on even further. They had sandals that were designed for the soldier to dig in and hold ground, to not yield. But not by themselves. They did it together. One soldier would put a shield up, and the next one would come in and lock in, and the next one would lock in, and the next one would lock in. They would do that across the front. And then the group behind them would take their shields and put over the front group. And then the group behind would do the same thing. It was called the impregnable. You couldn't budge those guys. The arrows would hit the shields and bounce off. Horses and things couldn't get close to them because of the pikes. They had a mutual defense. They took care of each other. Each had their own strength, but when they put their strengths together, it multiplied till they were impossible to defeat. That's what we need to do, folks. Each of us needs to prepare. Each of us needs to get ready. But don't stop there. There are people here that need help. Help them fill their cup. Use your shield to help them with their shield. We have the sword of truth. Share the sword of truth. And then let's take it out of here and work to defend those outside that also need our help. Be ready to defend the defenseless. Get ready for what's coming. We don't know how long it is to the buzzer, but we do know how it ends. The pickup rider's coming. He's coming to get us. Let's be ready for that moment. All right, let's go ahead and finish up. Lord, thank you for this day you've given us today. Thank you for the armor, the whole armor of God. Thank you for making sure our eyes are open to see what's coming in these times. Be with us so that we're not dismayed and we're not fooled. Lord, be with us all as we go into the coming week. Show us your blessings and let us pass those blessings on to others. This we ask in your name. Amen.